When you get down to it, sanding's one of those things that no one likes to do, but it's probably the single most important thing in getting a good finished result. So when I'm sanding, most important thing is a Class 2 NIOSH dust mask. That simply means it's a good filter. It has 2 straps on it, and when you wear it, it keeps the fine dust out of your lungs and out of your sinuses. Do that. Wear safety glasses, keep the dust out of your eyes, and hearing protection when you're using things like the belt sanders. Even though this is a whisper sander, very quiet, it can still kick out a good bit of noise. Okay, the other thing to think about are the grits, the abrasives that you use. I like aluminum oxide, usually that color right there, but sometimes I use silicon carbide. These are handy dispensers right here. You can just pull it right out, tear it off, and away you go. Now, what about grits? Well, here's what you need to know. You'll work with 100 grit, or the closest grit to that. That's what you start with. Then you go to 150, or a grit close to that, and you finish with 220, again, or in the ballpark. And by working through those grits, you'll get a super smooth surface. And that's really important, to work through the grits, to get rid of those sanding striations and the marks that you just can't quite see. And sand in good light, that's really important. The other thing, you need a good sanding block. You can use a block of wood, or you can buy a professional model. There are various types, and this is hard to beat right here. You pull it out, peel it to where you want it, tear it right off, you're in business. The other thing, you can see that this is a dedicated sanding area. That means I get to contain most of the fine dust in my shop in one zone. So I've got my benchtop belt sander with a disc on it. I usually run 80 grit on the disc, 100 grit on the belt. I've got a nice random orbital sander. And that is so good because it's very aggressive, and it has a peel and Velcro system here with dust collection holes. Just can't beat that. Usually start with 100 grit on that. But for aggressive sanding, I like to use the belt sander. The 4x24 belt really takes a lot of material off quickly. The key to that is keep it moving. Now, that's how I go about getting the material sanded down, but let me show you a couple other things. Once it's sanded down, I want to use a good tack cloth before I go to finishing. A lot of people don't get the surface of the wood clean, and what that means is they lock contaminants in the finish, and it just gives you a bumpy appearance. Once you get the surface of the wood clean, and you apply the first coat of finish, and more on finishing later, I like to use the old artificial nylon pads. They call this artificial steel wool. It's not steel wool, it's a nylon type product. And basically what this does, it buffs the wood, makes it smooth, but really doesn't scratch it. I like this over steel wool any day. So there's A to Z and the strategy on how you should approach sanding.